Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is Austin Davidson, broadcasting live to you from Long Island, New York today.
Heyo.
It is our special divisional round preview. We're going to be checking out the three games that don't involve the Pittsburgh Steelers today. So, Austin, let's jump right into it. We got the third-seeded Seattle Seahawks visiting the second-seeded Atlanta Falcons in the Georgia Dome tomorrow at 4:35 p.m. on Saturday. Let's take a quick look at the injury report, just some key players on both sides. The only key player worth mentioning on either injury report is CJ Prosise, who has a shoulder injury, but it's believed he's going to play, but he's questionable. A couple storylines we have going into this game, Austin. For Seattle, have people been sleeping on this team?
Nope. Even if Earl Thomas didn't get hurt, this team is just not the same as the other successful Seahawks teams to make the Super Bowl. Do they have the potential to win this? Of course, no game is a given, but they don't have the 12th man for this game, which they also rely heavily on. And this should just be the Falcons' game to lose. What do you think? Are people sleeping on the Seahawks?
No, I've been saying it for a few weeks now, so I'm going to stick to it. I don't think the Seahawks have enough to make it to the Super Bowl this year. It's true that they have the experienced veteran quarterback, a good coach, and a good defense, but this week they're going to be playing a much better team, a much better offense, and it's going to be on the road where they don't play nearly as well. I still think their weak offensive line and their lack of weapons on the outside will hurt them if they get into a track meet, which there's a good chance they will against a team like the Atlanta Falcons. On the other side of the field, you'll have the Falcons. Austin, is this the year that Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons finally get over the hump and make a deep playoff run, like to the Super Bowl?
Deep playoff run, I suppose. I believe they'll make it to the NFC Championship game, but this team isn't a Super Bowl caliber team. Whoever wins the Green Bay-Dallas game, I think, will surely be able to beat the Falcons, who lack a elite defense or even just a good defense. They're just kind of below average. So, what do you think? Do you think the Falcons can make a deep playoff run?
I am in complete agreement with you. If you want to classify a deep playoff run as a NFC Championship game, I think they can definitely do that. I think they have what it takes to win this week. I believe, in addition to you, that the winner of the Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys game will be making the Super Bowl. However, that's not meant to disrespect Matt Ryan but in the Atlanta Falcons, but he simply isn't as accomplished as Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, and the Dallas Cowboys are a much more complete team, both on offense and defense. And if they play Dallas, they'll be playing it in AT&T Stadium in Dallas. So I don't think they have what it takes. As far as the actual game goes, Austin, talking X's and O's, who do you think is going to win this game? And I guess just give us a little overview of this game.
Believe it or not, this is actually a favorable matchup for the Seahawks. There's no doubt the Seahawks struggle the most offensively and tend to excel on defense. And the Falcons have a below-average defense and a great offense, which is perfectly counterbalanced by how the Seahawks are. So, still, though, this rematch is a grudge match for the Falcons, or are probably still mad that for the Seahawks, the refs tend to play the 12th man as well. Obviously, Julio Jones didn't get a pass interference call on one of the last plays of the game, which would have allowed the Falcons to win. I've mentioned it several times now because I just get mad about it. But anyway, moving on. Vic Beasley led the NFL in sacks in the regular season. Against this offensive line, he may just go to town. I think the Seattle line had a great game last week, but I think it was just one of those one-time things where someone does well just one game. And that'll lead to Thomas Rawls getting way less yards than last week. And with that, this is the week Seattle offense won't be able to keep up with the offense firing on all cylinders. So I think the Falcons run away with it. What is your preview like?
Well, this is a very interesting matchup for one instance when the ball is in the hands of the Atlanta Falcons. You're going to have a top 10 offense going up a top 10 defense, which is usually a pretty good thing for an NFL game. But historically, the defense will win that battle more often than not. But even that being the case, I still think the Seahawks are not as great as their numbers have indicated since Earl Thomas left the lineup. They're still a good defense, but I don't think they're that elite unit that they've been over the past 5 years. I just think that the Falcons have way too many weapons for the Seahawks to account for the entire game. Julio Jones is the obvious target for Matt Ryan to go to, but he's not the only option. He's got guys like Taylor Gabriel, Mohamed Sanu, Jacob Tamme too, and that doesn't even include Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman out of the backfield. The Falcons are still going to likely have a strong 1-2 punch of Freeman and Coleman going in the running game and out of the backfield too. I just think that's too much for the Seahawks to stop for the entire game. They might be able to bottle up one thing, whether it's the passing game through the deep ball or it's just both of the running backs. I don't think they'll be able to cover both. On the other side, I think that the Falcons offense is going to be on the field a lot longer than the Detroit Lions offense was on the field last week. So I think by that I basically mean that the Seattle Seahawks offense is not going to be able to basically wear down the Falcons defense, and the Falcons defense, because they'll be fresh, they'll be able to play a little bit better, and they won't break down like the Lions defense did as the Seahawks scored more often late in that game. So I think that Atlanta has the better chance to get the upper hand in this game. Moving on, Austin, what are your bold predictions for this game and final score prediction?
I have Vic Beasley having 3 sacks on the day just because he was a beast in the regular season. I don't think he had a 3-sack performance in the regular season, so that's pretty bold. Anyway, moving on. Well, I think Russell Wilson struggles when it matters, throwing for less than 300 yards and 2 or more interceptions. Third one is Thomas Rawls gets almost completely shut down, getting less than 60 scrimmage yards. My fourth one is Taylor Gabriel finds the end zone twice. And then I think the Falcons win 26-21. How about you? What is your bold predictions in your final score?
Well, I think the Falcons running backs, Freeman and Coleman, are going to combine for 130 rushing yards and an additional 60 through the air, accounting for 190 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Freeman specifically, I'm thinking, is going to get 80 on the ground and 25 through the air and 1 rushing touchdown. I think Coleman's going to get the other 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground and through the air, and he'll tack on 50 rushing yards and 35 more receiving yards. Their quarterback, Matt Ryan's going to finish with 270 yards and 2 TDs. I think he has a pretty good day. He'll have a pretty clean game. And I think both of those touchdowns are going to go to Julio Jones, who's going to finish with 7 catches for 107 yards. On the other side, I think Russell Wilson will finish with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I think he throws a late interception to kind of seal the game. Doug Baldwin's going to finish with only 110 yards instead of the 1,100 I accidentally typed. Jimmy Graham, I believe, on the other end, is going to get the other touchdown, and he'll finish with 80 yards. I don't think this week Thomas Rawls is going to find the same success that he had last week, managing only 75 yards while the Seahawks are forced to abandon the run early. I think he'll find a good yards per carry average, but I don't think they'll be able to stick with the ground game long enough in this game. I think the Seahawks stage a late comeback, but it's too late. The Falcons win this game 27-24. So, is there anything else about this game that you wanted to add before we moved on to the next game?
Nope. Let's move on to Houston Texans and Patriots.
All right, well, the late game tomorrow on Saturday will be the 4th-seeded Houston Texans visiting the New England Patriots, who have home field advantage in the AFC playoffs. That kickoff is scheduled for 8:15 p.m. Got a few more injuries in this game. The Texans have outside linebacker Josh Simon and safety Quentin Demps, both questionable with a chest and hamstring injury. Specifically for them. And then the Patriots have wide receiver Malcolm Mitchell, who is questionable with a knee injury. Austin, can the Houston Texans defense make enough plays to keep them in this game?
Oh, no way. There's just not a chance. This team got lucky, the Texans, got lucky to be able to verse a third-string rookie quarterback surrounded by an injury-ridden team in the first round to make the defense look fantastic, which is not bad. The same won't happen against Belichick's Patriots. It's just not going to happen. Not even the defense in the plays. There's almost no way the Texans put up more than 14 points here. So, the defense won't be able to hold Tom Brady's offense. Like it's just not going to happen. They couldn't hold Jacoby Brissett's offense. So, there's just no way that the Texans defense makes enough plays. What do you think?
Let me repeat your sentiments. There is no way the Texans are going to be able to do what they need to do. I think for the Texans to have a chance their defense is going to have to score 2 touchdowns on their own just to keep up with them. And when that happens, I see it almost as more of a situation where the offense is making mistakes and giving it away rather than the defense just making plays, especially when you have a group like Tom Brady and the Patriots who so rarely get fooled on plays like that. So I think they'd need at least 3 turnovers and consistent pressure on Tom Brady that would result in something like 4 sacks on negative plays to give the Texans a chance, and there's just no way that they're going to make that many mistakes in this kind of game. So I guess kind of leading into the next question, do you think there's any chance the Patriots are going to get caught looking ahead to next week and maybe they play kind of a lousy, kind of a poor game that maybe the Texans have a chance to surprise some people in?
I mean, there's always a small chance for that upset, even to the Patriots, refer to the 2008 and 2012 Super Bowls. But maybe they do what we do and dismiss this Texans team and don't prepare well enough. Who knows? Do I think it would happen? No, absolutely not. I see the Patriots winning by over 17 points at the minimum. That is minimum you have to keep in mind. So, it's just not a likely upset. It's not one that I think will happen or that I see ever happening. But what do you think?
Bill Belichick is probably the best coach in at least the past couple of decades in the NFL. That's putting it lightly. The Patriots have been there and done that so many times over the past 5 years, let alone over the past 10, 15. I seriously doubt that they're ever going to be overlooking an opponent, even considered weak opponent in the Texans. You can bet they'll be ready for this game, and they won't be focused on next week's game until the final buzz goes for this game. If the Patriots play their game on offense and stay patient with the Texans' stout defense, waiting for their defense to take of Brock Osweiler's mistakes, which will happen, I think the Pats will win in a blowout. I say at least 20 points. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 30-point differential by the end, honestly. I mean, it's in Foxborough where the Patriots rarely lose, let alone. So I think obviously the only matchup in this game that the Texans really have is let me back up. The big matchup difference in this game lies between the number 1 scoring defense of the Patriots and the weak offense of the Texans, led by Brock Osweiler, which finished near the bottom of the league in almost every important offensive statistical category. As we mentioned last week, the only thing that stood out well for the Texans was their rushing attack, which was ranked 8th in the league. So you can be almost entirely certain that Bill Belichick and the Pats are going to game plan to take the run away by stacking the box and sort of daring Brock Osweiler to pass, because they know that over the course of the game, he's not going to be able to. Let him have those short underneath routes, make him play clean football, and wait for the pressure to get to Osweiler. We'll let him make the mistakes, and when he gives the ball to you, just take advantage of it. He played against a poor Raiders defense last week, and he played a pretty clean game, but I don't see that happening again. You have a much more talented team. You have a much better coached team, and I don't see how the Texans are going to be able to put together more than 2 or 3 scoring drives. On the other side of the ball, expect the Patriots to use a lot of misdirection running plays and quick passes early on to loosen up the Texans' tough defensive front. Once they've been tired out a little bit and they're starting to get back on their heels, expect Brady to go deep a few times off of play action once they've utilized James White and Deion Lewis in the quick passing game. If the Texans do turn the ball over, which I'm fully expecting that they do, I think we'll see LeGarrette Blount a lot at the end of this game, just imposing his will on the Texans' defeated front as they wear them down, and I think Blount's going to run wild at the end. What's your preview like for this game, Austin?
It's going to be a short one. The Texans have had one of the worst offenses to make the playoffs in several decades. This team was a joke to even make the playoffs. I'm not going to go in any further. This should just be over for a Texans squad that has to rely on their defense for everything. So we are going to move on to the bold predictions and final score predictions. What are yours?
Well, I think Brady is going to have a solid 325 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he'll get sacked a couple of times early, but he'll weather the storm and he'll play a pretty clean game. Something like, less than 10 incompletions or something like that. LeGarrette Blount, I've got him going over 100 yards and gets 3 touchdowns for the hat trick. And I think a lot of those yards are going to come in the second half. I just remember that game that AFC Championship game against the Colts a few years ago, and I think he scored 4 times. It was just running wild at the end. That's kind of how I feel like this game is going to go. On the other side of the ball, I think Brock Osweiler is going to throw for 280 total yards through the air. I think you're going to see a lot of that in garbage time and a lot of yards that don't really mean much. I think he gets picked off twice and he'll fumble once as they struggle to find any sort of offensive rhythm against the Patriots, and he'll get sacked 4 times. He throws 1 touchdown at the end of the game to Lamar Miller, who I think is going to get shut down as he manages only 60 tough yards, and his presence in the running game is pretty much eliminated when the Patriots get out to an early lead. I think the Patriots win in an easy blowout, 41-10. What about you, Austin?
My first one is that Brock Osweiler is going to throw 3 picks, and one of them is going to be a pick 6 and no touchdowns before getting benched for Tom Savage. Then Tom Savage is going to throw a touchdown in garbage time. My third one is that Tom Brady is going to have a rather down day for Tom Brady, which is not really that much of a down day. He's throwing for just barely 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And I think the Patriots win 38-13 here. It shouldn't be anything different than a blowout.
Yeah,
anyway,
this one was
any additional notes?
I thought this was a pretty easy game to kind of predict and figure out. Let's move on to what many people are calling the game of the week and the game of the playoffs. You got the 4th-seeded Green Bay Packers visiting the Dallas Cowboys, who have home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. That game is Sunday at 4:40 p.m. That is now the early game on Sunday, as the Steelers and Chiefs game has been moved from 1 p.m. start time to an 8:20 p.m. start time. Quick look at the injury report. Jordy Nelson, the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, has been ruled out of Sunday's game with a rib injury, and cornerback Quentin Rollins is questionable with a neck injury. It might be a concussion. The Cowboys have a long list of players who's questionable, so I'll just go over them really quickly. But most of them were either limited participants in practice or full participants. That includes Morris Claiborne, the cornerback, Tyrone Crawford, the defensive end, Justin Durant, the linebacker, DeMarcus Lawrence, the defensive end, Terrell McClain, the defensive tackle, Tyron Smith, the offensive tackle, and Cedric Thornton at D tackle. So, moving on, Austin, the loss of Jordy Nelson was a huge blow to Packers and their fans. Do you think that's going to be too much for Aaron Rodgers to overcome this week?
Nope. The offense showed they could do just fine without him last week, losing him for most of the game. In fact, they also lost their running back 1 or 2, however you want to consider it, or wide receiver 4, and they still did fine. And Aaron Rodgers is still going to do what he does best and sling the rock. So I don't think it's going to make a difference. What do you think?
No, I don't think it's going to be too much for Aaron Rodgers to overcome, at least as far as how the offense goes. It might be too much for a team-wide standpoint, but as far as the offense goes, Aaron Rodgers played his best football last week, probably later in the game around the time Jordy Nelson exited, and he still played well when he left. And while they won't be at home this week, the Giants have a better defense than the Cowboys. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get slowed down a little bit, but I just see the way he's playing right now. I don't think that even him getting slowed down is going to be enough to the point that he's not going to be effective. He's still a very good quarterback, no matter what happens to him at this point. So on the other side of the ball, it's that rookie curse, Austin. Do you think Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott are going to hit that rookie wall this week or at any point in the playoff?
I don't believe so this week. This defense really isn't anything special. I don't see any reason that Dak and Zeke hit the rookie wall here. It doesn't mean that they won't struggle to get things going at times during the game, but I think overall they'll still be successful as they've been all season. Do I see them hitting the rookie wall anytime later if they were to move on? I don't really believe so. I think they stay consistent all season. I believe that they'll do fine until they lose or make it to the Super Bowl. It's one of those two. But what do you think?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen either, but let me tell you something. If it's going to happen, it's definitely not going to happen this week. The Cowboys' offense is the strength of their team, and the Packers' weakness is in their defense. I just think the Cowboys have too much going right for them on offense this week. I don't see the playoffs really being a mental barrier for these kinds of rookies. I think they're going to play very well this week. and leading me into the preview. The story of this game is offense, offense, and offense. Both teams have very different ways of doing it, but they're both exciting, and it should make for what I think is going to be the best playoff game this year. You've got the Cowboys, who boast the powerful rushing attack with Ezekiel Elliott and that great offensive line with sprinkled in passes from the clutch Dak Prescott. The Packers are driven by the red-hot machine that is Aaron Rodgers, who wins by slinging the ball all over the field to a bunch of different receivers. Both teams, I think, should want to get the ball to start this game and take control of the game in their own ways. And the Packers would do this by scoring early and often with Rodgers. If they go up early, they could try to force the Cowboys to abandon the run that they take so much pride in. Putting the game in Prescott's hands would probably be the Packers' only chance to stop the Cowboys on offense, assuming he doesn't play well. On the other hand, if the Cowboys can go up by a couple of scores on a couple of long, tough, 10-play drives, they'll be able to tire out the Cowboys' defense and keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. When he's off the field, he'll struggle to find a rhythm at some point, and then with, like I was saying, with the tired defense, you'll be able to use play action, and Dak Prescott can go deep to take advantage. So, in any case, I think both teams are going to score a lot of points. I don't really see one team getting really far ahead. I think it's going to be a close game right to the end. What about you, Austin? What do you think about this?
I think both these teams have the same type of team where the offense is substantially better than the defense. However, the Cowboys are more run-oriented, and the Packers, barely having a starting running back all season, are way more pass-friendly. It's basically going to be a shootout between the Cowboys' offensive line and Zeke, and Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and Jared Cook for the most part. This should be one of the best matchups of the divisional round. I expect it to be a very close game compared to last time these teams met, which was in Week 6, where the Cowboys won 30-16. Do you have any bold predictions and final score?
Of course I do. I'm expecting Aaron Rodgers to continue on his hot streak. I think he goes for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air, just like he did last week. On the other side, I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to be starring in his playoff debut, much in the same way Le'Veon Bell did last week. I think he goes for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dak Prescott, I don't see him playing a bad game at all. I think he'll play a pretty clean game, high efficiency, high completion percentage. He's going to look like a polished veteran out there, throwing for 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, no sacks. And my last one is I think Dan Bailey's going to hit a winning field goal with under a minute left. And that leads into my final score prediction, which is a nail-biter in the best game of the playoffs. Dan Bailey from 45 yards will give the Cowboys a 31-28 win in the closing seconds of the divisional round. What about you, Austin?
I didn't realize how close our predictions are. I have 2 almost exactly the same predictions. My first one is that Zeke and the Cowboys' offensive line continue to do amazing things, allowing Zeke to get 110 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. And speaking of the Cowboys line, leading to my second bold prediction, they don't allow Prescott to get sacked once and only give up 2 quarterback hits. My third one is Aaron Rodgers continues to shine and throws for 375 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. My fourth bold prediction is kind of a weird one. It's like I think the team leading changes at least 6 times in this game. And then my final score prediction is going to be that the Packers fall short and do not end up running the table, losing 34-31. Do you have any additional news and notes?
Yes. I know we didn't do this, but we did do this last week. So how about we think about a star for each team? Like, I guess one, like, X factor or someone to look out for on each team for these games? Because we didn't do this last week. Or we did do it last week. So
we'll start with the Seahawks and Falcons.
All right. Well, I'll go with the Seahawks first. If the Seahawks are going to win this game, I think Jimmy Graham is going to be the guy that has to play a huge game for them. I think, what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. Doug Baldwin. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Doug Baldwin is a fantastic receiver, but I think the Falcons' attention defensively is going to go right to him. So I think if Jimmy Graham can be the guy that kind of gets open over the middle, scores a couple of touchdowns, kind of looks like that Jimmy Graham we saw in New Orleans for all those years. If he can do that, I think the Seahawks will be able to keep up with the Falcons. So if he plays well, I think he'll give them a chance to win. For the Falcons, it's going to be For me, I'm going with Vic Beasley. He's got to be the one guy that stands out on their defense for a group that statistically has not been that great. I think he's got the chance to kind of wreck the Seahawks game plan. What about you for that game, Austin? Who's your X factor?
For Seahawks-wise, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I think if anyone's going to win the game for them, it's going to be him. The ball's got to leave his hands and be thrown perfectly. I think he will. If they are to win, he is going to be the major reason and contributor because that offense is going to need the power behind them. But for the Falcons, I am also going to go with Vic Beasley because I already called him having a big day. And but as you said, he's a star in a muddy water. He's the best thing on that defense, and I think he's going to be a real game changer in this game. So let's move on to the Texans and Patriots. Who do you got for those teams?
Well, the Texans, it's pretty difficult, Austin. I wanted to go with Tom Brady or the bed Tom Brady is going to be laying on the night before in case by any chance it manages to make him sore the next day and by any chance make him have a tough game. But if we're going to go for a realistic pick, it's Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know who else it could be. I don't see anyone on the offense for Houston being able to make a big enough impact. Clowney's got to be a guy who has like 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, maybe an interception. He's got to have the game of his life simply for the Texans to even have a chance. And that's unfortunate for him, but that's simply the way it's going to be. For the Patriots, I think it's I wanted to go with Julian Edelman, but I'm going to go with Chris Hogan just because he's that guy that kind of everyone seems to forget about, and I forgot about too. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything well, and of course, this is the first time he's really been noticed on a national stage because the last few years he was kind of a forgotten man in Buffalo, and sure enough, he goes to New England, and Tom Brady turns him into a really good player. So those are my guys. What about you?
I'm going to go with the same thing again. I'm going to agree with the defensive lineman. I'm going to say Jadeveon Clowney for the Texans. There's no one in that game besides him that I think could get anything done. Like might be the only good thing in the game is Jadeveon Clowney for the Texans anyway. Looking at the Patriots, he's questionable, but I'm also going with a wide receiver. But I'm going to go with Mike Mitchell. Malcolm Mitchell. I'm sorry, I got Steelers confused. Anyhow, Malcolm Mitchell, I've seen him play this year, and of course, Brady just finds a way to get a wide receiver that does decent things. And if he plays, I think he could be a real difference maker, knowing how A.J. Boye is probably going to be on Edelman, and then Jonathan Joseph is going to be on Chris Hogan more than likely. Or maybe they'll follow around Martellus Bennett. I don't know. But I still believe in Malcolm Mitchell. So moving on to the last game, who do you have for the Cowboys and who do you have for the Packers?
All right, well, first for the Dallas Cowboys, it's no further than it's, believe it or not, it's actually Jason Witten for me. He's my X factor. You have it's going to be either him or Cole Beasley catching the underneath passes on those critical third down plays that are going to be crucial for the Cowboys, whether it's maintaining the ball and trying to tire out that depleted Packers defense. So I think if you look at him and Cole Beasley, but specifically Witten, the 14-year veteran who's been doing it for years, the future Hall of Famer, I think he's the guy that is going to be very important and the key to a Cowboys win. For the Packers, I don't know. I want to say Randall Cobb, but I think I'm just going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know who else it could be. There's no one else that really sticks out on offense. We said it last week too. Aaron Rodgers, if they're going to win this game, if they're going to make it any further, just like they have the last month and a half, it's going to be him. He's got to be the guy that gets it done, Austin. It's as simple as that. Your X factor is for this game.
For Cowboys, I'm going to go with Zeke. I think Zeke is going to have a really good day here. He's going to ultimately lead the Cowboys to victory, along with the offensive line, but to give them an honorable mention, I couldn't just pick one offensive lineman. I'm going to go to the Packers side, and I was going to pick Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to be a little different here. You made me think of their wide receivers. I'm going to go with Davante Adams. Davante Adams had a really big week after Jordy Nelson left last week, and he could possibly have another one. I could see it, so I'm going to go with Davante Adams.
Still waiting to see on if Morris Claiborne is going to play this week or not. That'll be
Might be it.
a crucial matchup. But I think we're all set here, Austin. The kind of quick round robin here, just quick get into the games. We all set?
Yep.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap us up for today. If you want to check us out on Twitter and Facebook, our handles are STS Podcast 1. Check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud. Our names are Stronger Than Steel Podcast. And if you have any questions, you want to email the show, we're at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Austin will record our Steelers show tomorrow. We hope you all enjoy some playoff football on Saturday and on Sunday as well. You all have a good night.